So last time we got to this point, we've got our spreadsheet with a bit of colouring in and some grouping to kind of keep hold of historical data but hide it away. It's really useful. This time I'm going to talk about actually keeping this stuff up to date. This is the pain, this is the awkward bit, because little bits and pieces change. Occasionally people change names and things like that, but most importantly things like sets and tutor groups shift around a little bit during the year, and that can be a bit of a pain to organize. And also you get students starting and students leaving, and keeping track of all that is awkward. But thankfully all of that is already kept track of in one place in your MIS. So you will already have that data somewhere. And so what I do is I don't track it myself. I use the MIS to do all the hard work for me. So what I've got over here is the sort of thing that you might get as an export from your MIS. It will have a unique identifying number for every student in the first column, and then whatever data you want to export. Typically there'll be a pretty kind of standard export that you can access, which will give you what you want. If you don't have access, somebody will, and they'll be able to set up a report for you. If you are a maths or an English teacher or whatever, then you want their maths or English class to be there, and that's kind of the most important thing. On my real exports, I also pull things like attendance data out, sometimes behavior points, depending on what's available to me. But anything that kind of might potentially be insightful and useful, you can grab in this big old spreadsheet. And the advantage of doing it this way is when you export this, you don't need to worry about it being right. It's right. It's in Sims or Arbor or Bromcom or whatever it is you're using, and it's definitely right. So you don't have to manually change anything. All you have to do is export it again and save it in the same place. And I'll tell you why in the same place in a minute. And then we need to do something a bit clever. We need to connect these two sheets up. And so I've got this ID column here. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to type in Kevin's identifying number right here. And then I'm going to use a formula called a VLOOKUP. So I'm going to type in equals and then V and lookup. Excel does a bit of auto completing for you, so you kind of know you got it right. And then open brackets. And then I've got four things I need to type in: the lookup value, the table array, the column index number, and this thing in brackets which says range lookup. I'll talk through all of them one at a time. The lookup value is the ID we want to look up. Now I don't want to type in 1010 because I want it to look at this cell A2. So I'm going to click on this cell A2. And now it will look up whatever is typed in that box. So if I type a new number in, it will look a different student up. And then I'm going to hit comma. And then I need to type in the table array. Now this is the table of data from the management information system. That's why I've got both open at once. And what I want to do is I want to just click the column headers. So I'm going to click over onto this spreadsheet, and then I'm going to select all the columns by clicking and dragging on the columns like we did before to do the grouping. So I'm going to drag all of these columns. And it's going to type a bunch of stuff in automatically for you. MIS data example, that's the name of this spreadsheet. Sheet 1, that's the name of the sheet down here. And then A to H, that's these columns that I'm selecting. So that's the range, that's the table I'm looking things up in. I put a comma in. And then the next thing I want is the column index number. Now I'm typing into the forename column. So if I look at this table here, column 1's the ID number, it has to be. And column 2 has their first name. So I want to type a 2 in. I want the value in column 2. And then a comma. And then I've got this final slightly weird thing. Do I want an approximate match or an exact match? I need an exact match, because if this number isn't exactly the same as the ID in this spreadsheet, it's the wrong student. So I want to type in the word false. That's very important. If you type in true, you'll get a whole load of weirdness going on, because you'll get students who are nearly the same ID but not quite the same ID number. It is all very confusing. And then I just press enter, and there we go. There's my formula, and it's looked at the table and it's found that that person's first name is Kevin. Now, what I can do now is I can take all of this thing that I've typed here, and I'm going to just copy it, and I'm going to click in this cell here, and I'm going to paste it. And lo and behold, it says Kevin again, which is great. It's kind of what I want, because I'm still looking up the ID here. It's still looking in this big table here, but unfortunately it's looking at column 2. And I want it to say their surname, which is column 1, 2, 3. So in this formula I've just copied, I want to just change this number 3 to here to a number 3, press enter, and now it says bacon. Brilliant. I'm going to paste this one again for set. The math set is in column 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I'm going to change that to a 7. I'm going to paste it for tutor group, which is in column 4. I'm going to paste it for gender, which is in column 6. And I actually don't care about the year or the teacher because they're not things in my spreadsheet. You know, this is my year 9 tracker, so I don't need it to say year 9 in the columns and so on. And that's it. And this is great. It's got Kevin in there, lovely. But actually, I want all of these in here. I've got 9 students, so what I can do is I can just grab these 5 cells, select them all. The little green box here, if I move the mouse over, I get a change cursor, plus a white plus sign, got a black plus sign. If I click and drag down, then I can drag these down, and it copies that down. But you see, it's a bit confused because this is now trying to look up a 3, the first one in the next row, and that's completely empty. So what I can do now is I can just copy all of these ID numbers and I can paste all of them, and suddenly I've got a complete spreadsheet all set up. Now, the reason I do it this way is because all I have to do now to update this data, and in fact any other data that I've pulled across from my management information system, is change this spreadsheet. So if Kevin and Meryl swap classes, so Kevin is now in set 2 and Meryl's now in set 1, I've changed them on here and instantly they've changed on here as well. I don't need to do anything with this spreadsheet. This is always going to perfectly match the data from the MIS. And as long as when I do my export, I save the thing over the top of the old one, I give it the same exact file name and I put it in the same folder, this spreadsheet won't know any different. It'll just look for that file and update it. So as long as when I do my export, I save it over the old one with the same file name, it's going to work. And that's easy because MIS exports have a standard format. So it will always look exactly the same. As long as you give it the same file name, everything will just automatically work and update straight away. And that is how I manage all of my class lists and keep them all updated. Every now and then I have to do a kind of look through and go, oh, we've got a new student, so I need to type a new name I need to type a new ID in here. But apart from having to occasionally add another row and put another number in, or delete a row, you know, because if Anne's gone, this will suddenly stop working because it's got nothing to look up, then I can kind of identify that real quick and get rid of them. But that's it. It's pretty quick to maintain this, and I don't have to do any manual faffing around of changing sets on my spreadsheets.